Have you been feeling tired, unmotivated, low on energy, and think it's just stress? Maybe your body is trying to tell you something you don't want to hear. Excessive masturbation may be draining your life force. Pleasure is a natural and healthy function, but when lived in excess, it turns into a silent thief of energy, testosterone, and motivation. During masturbation, the entire body enters a state of physiological arousal. The brain releases dopamine, the adrenal glands produce adrenaline, the heart speeds up, and the nervous system activates the pelvic floor muscles. It's an energy burst, similar to the effort of a short sprint. The problem is that, unlike physical exercise, excessive sexual stimulation doesn't strengthen the body, it wears it down. Dopamine is the pleasure hormone, but it's also the hormone of motivation and energy. When it's released many times a day, the brain gets used to that spike and starts responding with less intensity. Pleasure that once stimulated now tires you out. A man begins to feel weak, unfocused, and mentally scattered. Instead of energy, exhaustion shows up. With every climax, the body releases a large amount of chemicals but also spends essential minerals like zinc, magnesium, and selenium, crucial for testosterone production. When this happens repeatedly, the body goes into deficit. Testosterone drops, cortisol rises, and the result is a state of chronic fatigue disguised as pleasure. You feel desire but not strength. You want pleasure, but lack energy. The brain asks for stimulation, but the body asks for rest. And the more you try to compensate for fatigue with pleasure, the deeper you dig the exhaustion hole. Excessive pleasure doesn't just steal hormones, it steals vitality. It shuts off the energy that should make you wake up willing, train hard, work with focus, and feel alive. I'm Emily Collins, a urologist, and today I'll explain how excessive masturbation is directly linked to your physical tiredness, your lack of motivation, and your drop in energy. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because here I talk about men's sexual health with scientific grounding, no taboos, and direct language. And tell me in the comments, have you felt your body more tired than normal, even without physical exertion? During masturbation, the male body enters a state of full activation. It's a complex physiological process, commanded by the brain and sustained by the whole body. It all starts in the nervous system. Sensory stimuli reach the brain, which releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, pleasure, and desire. This rise in dopamine lights up the reward center and creates the feeling of euphoria and satisfaction. At the same time, the adrenal glands release adrenaline and noradrenaline, speeding up the heartbeat, raising blood pressure, and preparing the body for climax. The penis receives increased blood flow, breathing quickens, and the pelvic muscles contract to sustain the erection. It's a truly coordinated job between brain, heart, and muscles. At ejaculation, the body releases a sequence of chemicals: oxytocin, which creates the feeling of pleasure and bonding, serotonin, which brings relaxation, and prolactin, which ends the cycle and triggers the sensation of satiety. This mix is powerful and necessary, but it also requires energy. With each climax, the body spends hormonal reserves, minerals, and neuromuscular energy. When this process is repeated several times a day, the nervous system doesn't have time to rebalance. Dopamine, which should be stimulating, starts to plunge. The brain loses sensitivity to pleasure, the body stays in a constant state of fatigue, and a man begins to depend on stimulation just to feel something. This is what we call dopaminergic fatigue, a silent collapse of the chemistry of pleasure. In addition, with every ejaculation, the body releases small amounts of zinc and magnesium, elements essential for testosterone production and for muscular and nervous balance. Over time, excessive masturbation depletes these reserves, generating tiredness, weakness, and decreased libido. What was supposed to be a pleasure mechanism turns into a drainage cycle. The body, which should recover and generate energy, starts running in the red, always tired, always seeking more stimulation, but with less response. Pleasure is biological, but balance is conscious. When stimulation becomes routine, the body stops reacting with vitality and starts reacting with depletion. And that's exactly what I want to show you now. when pleasure stops being pleasure and starts draining your energy, dopaminergic fatigue. Pleasure is commanded by dopamine, the hormone that makes you want, pursue, and feel satisfaction. It's the engine of motivation, focus, and energy. But what almost no one knows is that when pleasure is sought in excess, especially through repetitive masturbation, the brain goes into chemical collapse. Dopamine, which used to drive you, starts to disappear, and pleasure becomes drainage. Every time you stimulate yourself, the brain releases a high dose of dopamine. That's what creates the intense feeling of pleasure and reward. But the brain is smart, it sees excess as a threat and begins to protect itself. To do so, it reduces the number of dopamine receptors. It's like turning down pleasure's volume. You may try to feel the same pleasure, but the brain no longer reacts with the same intensity. This process creates a dangerous cycle. The less dopamine you feel, the more stimulation you seek. But the more you seek, the less you feel. It's a progressive depletion. The brain goes into defense mode. And the body responds with apathy, low energy, and loss of interest in anything that doesn't bring immediate pleasure. This is dopaminergic fatigue, a modern condition many men confuse with sluggishness, laziness, or depression. In reality, it's the direct result of overstimulation. Dopamine stops working as an energy source and starts being drained as fuel for quick pleasure. The body gets used to immediate rewards and forgets what natural pleasure feels like, the kind that comes from real touch, achievement, movement, life. Over time, the lack of dopamine affects everything. Libido drops, erections weaken, focus disappears, and even mood shifts. A man feels empty, as if he's always tired even with no physical effort. It's the brain trying to regain balance after being pushed to the limit. Pleasure stops energizing and starts siphoning. The body asks for a pause, but the mind wants more. And it's exactly in this conflict that physical and mental depletion take root. A man becomes trapped between desire and exhaustion. Dopamine needs time to regenerate. Only balance brings back true pleasure, the kind that adds energy instead of taking it away. And that's exactly what I want to show you now, how the hormonal imbalance between testosterone and cortisol turns excess into real exhaustion. The male body runs on a delicate balance between two hormones, testosterone and cortisol. Testosterone delivers energy, focus, confidence, desire, and strength. Cortisol, in small amounts, helps handle stress and keeps the body alert. But when pleasure is lived in excess, this balance breaks, and the result is a body without energy, vitality, or control. Every time you masturbate, the body releases dopamine and adrenaline. These substances activate the sympathetic nervous system, the one that prepares the body for action. That's why your heart speeds up, blood pressure rises, and muscles tense. Then, after climax, the body releases prolactin, serotonin, and cortisol, the hormones of relaxation and recovery. This cycle is natural, but when repeated many times a day, it disorganizes the entire hormonal structure. Prolactin, when frequently elevated, inhibits testosterone production. The brain understands that the body has already achieved enough pleasure and reduces the stimulus to the testes. The result is less circulating testosterone, less energy, less desire, and a constant feeling of fatigue. At the same time, cortisol, the stress hormone, stays high, because the body never has time to fully recover between stimuli. This combination is destructive. Low testosterone strips away strength, focus, and confidence. High cortisol robs sleep, raises anxiety, and drains metabolism. A man feels irritable, exhausted, and unmotivated even on a calm day. The body lives as if always in emergency mode, but without fuel to respond. Over time, excess cortisol affects the heart, muscles, and even the brain. Cellular energy production drops, the body begins to accumulate abdominal fat, and erections lose firmness, not from lack of desire, but from lack of vitality. Pleasure, which should release energy, starts to siphon it. And the body, trying to protect itself, reduces desire to force rest. That's why many men report lowered libido, lack of motivation, and burnout after periods of excessive masturbation. Hormonal imbalance isn't punishment, it's a warning. The body is trying to make you stop before the wear and tear becomes chronic. And that's exactly what I want to show you now, how the body begins to send clear signs of physical and sexual exhaustion when the limit is crossed. The body always warns before it collapses. It speaks through symptoms, sensations, and subtle changes many men ignore. The problem is that excessive pleasure quiets those signals, and when you notice them, the body is already on high alert. The first symptom of physical and sexual exhaustion is persistent fatigue. You wake up tired, even after sleeping. Simple tasks feel heavy, and your body is slower to respond. This is the direct reflection of low testosterone and constantly elevated cortisol. The body can't generate enough energy, and the brain starts running in economy mode. The second symptom is loss of focus and motivation. Dopamine, which once drove you, no longer responds. A man begins to feel disinterested in work, relationships, and even activities that used to bring pleasure. It's as if the brain were anesthetized. The third symptom is a drop in sexual potency. Erections are weaker, desire appears less often, and climax arrives faster. This happens because, in exhaustion, the body prioritizes vital functions over reproduction. Blood is diverted from the penis to more important organs, and pleasure loses intensity. The fourth symptom is constant irritability. Excess cortisol makes the nervous system more reactive. Any setback becomes a stress trigger. A man feels impatient, tense, and at the same time too drained to respond. It's a mix of anxiety and apathy, the body in internal conflict. The fifth symptom is insomnia or light sleep, resulting from imbalance between dopamine and serotonin. The body tries to rest, but the brain stays on alert, stuck in the stimulation-exhaustion cycle. It's like trying to sleep with the engine still running. And there's the sixth symptom, the most dangerous, normalizing weakness. A man gets used to living tired. He accepts low energy as part of life, not realizing the body is screaming for recovery. This is the point where pleasure stops being healthy and becomes a form of self-sabotage. These signs aren't punishment, they're warnings. The body is asking for a pause, nutrition, and rest. If you ignore it, it will keep draining energy until fatigue becomes permanent. But the good news is that this process can be reversed. The male body has an impressive ability to regenerate, as long as you give it what it really needs. And that's exactly what I want to show you now, how to regain energy, restore hormones, and return to feeling pleasure with vitality and balance. The good news is that the male body regenerates, and faster than you think. Even after periods of excess and fatigue, the body has an incredible ability to rebalance. But that only happens when you decide to change the pace and give the body what it needs most: pause, nutrition, and awareness. The first step to reverse exhaustion is to reduce stimulation frequency. Give your body at least 2 or 3 days without masturbation. This interval is what we call a dopamine reset, the time the brain needs to restore natural sensitivity to pleasure. In just a few days, you'll notice the return of energy, focus, and even mental clarity. The second step is to nourish the body with the right elements. Semen contains minerals fundamental to metabolism and testosterone production, like zinc, magnesium, and selenium. When you ejaculate excessively, you lose part of these reserves. Replenish them through food, nuts, eggs, fish, and dark leafy vegetables. And drink more water. Hydration is essential for hormonal balance. The third step is to regulate sleep. Most testosterone is produced during the deep phases of sleep. Sleeping poorly is like cutting in half the production of the hormone that sustains your energy. Create a wind-down routine, turn off screens, reduce stimuli, and allow your body to truly rest. The fourth step is to get your body moving again. Physical exercise is the natural antidote to cortisol. It stimulates testosterone, improves mood, and speeds nervous system recovery. But the key is balance. Training should revitalize, not exhaust. The fifth step is to re-educate your brain about pleasure. Replace artificial stimulation with real experiences. Touch, connection, emotional involvement. Natural pleasure recharges dopamine, while mechanical pleasure depletes it. The more conscious the act, the more energy your body gives back. Finally, the sixth step is to give it time. The body takes 14 to 21 days to fully restore dopaminergic sensitivity and hormonal balance after periods of excess. Each day of pause helps the brain recover receptors, the body recover energy, and pleasure return more intense and clean. The secret isn't eliminating pleasure, but mastering the rhythm. And that's exactly what I want to show you now, the conclusion of this journey. Pleasure and energy go together, and only the man who learns to balance both keeps true potency. Energy and pleasure are two forces that should walk side by side, but when one grows too much, the other fades. Excessive pleasure consumes energy, balanced pleasure generates energy. That's the difference between the man who feels alive and the man who lives tired. The male body was made for pleasure, but also for control. True power isn't in how many times you satisfy yourself, but in how you do it. The man who learns to master his own desire discovers a deeper, cleaner, longer-lasting kind of pleasure, the kind that wakes the body up instead of draining it. Excess is treacherous. At first it feels like pleasure, then it becomes habit, and finally it turns into fatigue. Dopamine falls, testosterone sinks, cortisol rises, and the body lives exhausted. But when you decide to change the pace, everything changes. The brain responds again, the body produces energy again, and pleasure regains meaning. Male potency is born from balance. A balanced body has a focused mind, steady energy, and firm erections. Not because it forces anything, but because it flows naturally. When pleasure is conscious, it nourishes. When it's uncontrolled, it drains. I'm Emily Collins, a urologist, and I see this every day, men who thought they had lost desire but were actually just exhausted. A short period of pause and awareness was enough for everything to return: desire, erection, vitality, and confidence. The male body doesn't forget how to react, it just needs you to stop forcing it. Mastering pleasure is mastering life's energy. It's understanding that every pause is a recharge and that every conscious stimulus is an investment in your vitality. The man who understands this doesn't just feel more pleasure, he becomes stronger, more focused, and more alive. If you've made it this far, congratulations, it shows you want to take care of your body and your energy intelligently. Now, subscribe to the channel, because here I talk about men's sexual health with scientific grounding, no taboos, and direct language. Leave your like if this video made you reflect, and comment below, my energy is conscious. And for those who stayed until the end, the next video is already on the screen. There I explain how to restore male vitality with simple, natural habits that transform your body and mind. Click and keep going with me, because understanding your body is the first step to mastering your energy.